Hey there, YouTube. How are you all doing out there today? No complaints here from South Alabama. It's a little bit overcast, but hey, it's not raining, so I'm going to get out of the house in just a little bit. But today I wanted to talk about plant-based vegan help for gut issues. As I mentioned in a couple of videos here, the last few weeks I've been like doubling down and listening to videos that are non-entertainment. Like I've been kind of getting back to listening to stuff that they'll actually teach me something. And I'm also finding that the car is a really good place because you're kind of a captive audience. You have to focus a little bit more in the car because you know that when you're sitting around the house listening to something, there's always distractions. So yeah, I found yesterday I had to go over to Pensacola and I listened to podcasts the whole way over, the whole way back, and as I was doing my errands around town. And I've been doing quite a lot of this lately, and I think I mentioned with some of the stuff I've been looking at, I've been following Andrew Huberman a lot, but this is more about food today. I've kind of gone back to the beginning and started listening to some of the doctors, listening to some of the people out there of a plant-based. And as I've mentioned a number of times, and a lot of people say they like his podcast too, Rich Roll. I love the guests that Rich Roll gets. And I listened to a Rich Roll podcast yesterday, and I had listened to a related podcast of his the day before. And it's about gut health. The fiber-fueled author, Dr. Will Bulsiewicz. And I'll tell you something, because some people are saying, well, you've talked about him so much, like you've watched him before. Why do you just keep watching him over and over? Because these different interviews, there's always the particular interviewer can ask something different. Or maybe, you know, like I say, I lose focus. Some of these are long talks. The Rich Roll one of them was like 2.5 hours or more, if I'm not mistaken. So when I go back over the content, and it's not like it's boring to me because it's a different person interviewing or it's coming from a different angle. So yeah, I've probably altogether, since I found out about the guy, I've probably listened to him on podcast or on YouTube or whatever, so like 10 plus times at least, but I've learned more and more stuff, and I did this too. And this is just going to be kind of I just kind of want to give you a preview of what can happen, that there is help out there. I'm not going to try to explain this stuff. I mean, I'm basically 10 IQ points above the village idiot. 30 years of hard drinking ate up most of the brain matter up here. And they can explain it a lot better. Also, too, there's a brilliant one. I'm going to put a link below to the YouTube version of these two talks by Rich Roll and Dr. Bulsiewicz. But of course, you can listen, and that's where I normally absorb my content is on my phone. I've got Apple, whatever you use, wherever you listen to your podcast, it will be there. But I'll drop the 2 episodes below. And there's another one, when you get to Rich Roll's channel, search Masterclass, Plant-Based Masterclass. It's, I think that was Rich Roll. Yeah, that was Rich Roll. It's kind of it's chopped up. It's about an hour and a half podcast, but it's chopped up with these expert doctors. I think he had Esselstyn in there. He had Dr. Clapper. He just had a lot of good stuff, and they were hitting the highlights. But as it relates to gut issues and help for gut issues, he got into dealing with those a little bit more. And like I say, you're going to be a lot more better served by listening to him explain some of this stuff if you're dealing with some of this. But so many vegans come to this lifestyle. They start doing this, and they're taking in more fiber than they ever have in their life. And fiber is so important. We need to be getting that fiber. Most statistic that blew my mind was 97% of this country is fiber deficient. Another big tenet of his, before I get to kind of like the part he was talking about for the gut health, another thing that is so important to our overall health as well as our digestion, our elimination and everything is the diversity of our microbiome. You have to pay attention to that microbiome. So if there's only 3 things you take away from this, go watch those videos. Definitely you're probably going to want to increase your fiber. Get the diversity. Dr. B talks about getting at least 30 different plants per week. And that can seem a little daunting, but I mean, you got 7 days. You just mix it up instead of eating the same things over and over and over. And hey, I was guilty of that back in the day. You know, probably when I was in Costa Rica, I was a little too, didn't eat quite enough diversity, but you know, like now I definitely do. Now, also, too, one thing that I learned that was very interesting is that even though you can be constipated, even if you're going to the bathroom, if you're not having, you know, full elimination, full bowel movements, and a lot of times it just simply, there will be, he talked about that you've kind of just got to get through it, but, and this is why you need to go listen to the expert, not me. Some people can get through it. Some people, you just increase your fiber and you just start getting looser and looser until you start going. But for some people, if they're clogged enough, just throwing more fiber in it is not going to do anything. And in that case, he recommends a number of things for helping to, first you get the bowels moving. First you use something to get the bowels moving, and then you start with the fiber protocol and just start building up your fiber and eating more and more fiber. And it'll take a little while. Our microbiomes are basically made up of everything we've eaten for the last 3 months. But they'll start, and also he starts talking about generations of microbiomes and how like he said a stat that blew my mind. Our body is actually like only about less than 5% human DNA, and the rest is microbiomes. These little things that live in us, they're fascinating. So yeah, go check that out. But nobody has to suffer on this lifestyle. There's ways to help through it. And a lot of times, also as well, just one last little highlight or detail that I'll mention is that we tend to, when we don't feel good, when we're uncomfortable, when we're bloated, when we're whatever, a lot of times we do the opposite of what we really should be doing because it just intuitively seems like it'll make us feel better. For instance, like if you have a bad stomach, if you are people that are kind of constipated tend to eat less because they just kind of won't, you know, they don't want to put any more thing on it. But when you're just stop eating or you're restricting, that's not going to help the flow get going. So just know that there are answers out there for people, and everybody's different. And he said that he likes to make that very, very, very clear that all our just as we as individuals are different, our microbiomes are different too. And just because you couldn't just copy exactly what I eat. I mean, you know, you have a different microbiome than I. Now, if we worked on it in sync, that we could sync our microbiomes, but you know, in general, you've got your own, I've got mine. So, you know, it's not like one size fits all. There are different issues, but there is a way. And like I say, just go listen to some of his stuff. And he also, too, he gets into this stuff about, this is it sounds kind of gross when people think about it, but it's really not. Fecal transplants and how they can give a transplant, like basically they take the fecal matter and they put it in capsule form. And I'm not really up on that, listen to what he has to say, but they can change the microbiome by doing that, but it's only a temporary thing. And if the person doesn't start feeding that new microbiome, that it won't last for very long. But you can literally take those fecal transplants and change the dynamics of people's body on a temporary basis. So anyhow, I really recommend you go listen to those. Listen, like me, listen in your car if you can, if you're out in your car enough, but you know, where you can focus on it. And, you know, if you don't mind, listen to repetitive things, which I don't. In fact, I'm about to go walk here in a little bit, and I'll probably listen to another podcast that I've listened to before, or at least the same person talking on somebody else's podcast. But helps out there. You don't have to suffer, and there's usually a plant solution. So anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video today. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Have a beautiful rest of the week, and I'll see you tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, when I see you. Peace.